Good morning, everyone. My name is MightyStream, and I'm going to do your May the 6th spiritual principle a day in a meditation. If you need to reach me, feel free to do so at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com. Let's go ahead and get into the meditation. It is entitled The Discernment Dimmer Switch. Discernment comes from hard experience, trusting people we shouldn't, being hurt, and coming back anyway. That is taken from the Living Clean book, Chapter 5, Friendship. Addicts seem especially prone to being all or nothing people. We either know or have been the kind of people who flip between manipulation and brutal honesty, who exercise 8 days a week or not at all, or who have love, hate relationships with everything and everybody. One member described their approach to relationships this way: either I'm all in or you're dead to me. Suspicion, cynicism, and self-reliance were survival skills. It doesn't take much clean time for us to realize this dark and fearful view of the world won't serve our recovery well. Hope for a better life creeps up on us, crowding out our previously dark outlook. Some of us even adopt an uncharacteristically sunny disposition as the renowned pink cloud colors our entire approach to life for a time. Not to knock this glorious phase of early recovery or those lucky enough to experience it, but blind optimism carries its own risk. We can trust NA with saving our lives without entrusting every member with all of our secrets. It's important to modulate our openness, discerning the difference between sharing at group level, confiding in a friend, and bearing our soul in a fifth step. Of course, some of our best lessons come from our mistakes. This is where discernment comes in. Discernment introduces us to the brake pedal so that we don't have to lurch between extremes. Tapping the brakes on our thinking and behavior allows us to practice good judgment instead of impulsiveness. Discernment turns a toggle switch into a dial. Instead of binary choices like trust or don't trust, we discern the useful territory between poles. We discern not just right from wrong, but also right from almost right. Discernment helps us make better choices and learn from experience. We'll still get things wrong, but we can take the time to discern a better approach and try again. Do I have toggle switches for some of my emotions or behaviors that should be converted to dials? How can a discernment dimmer switch tone down some of my excesses? Let's take a moment of silence, followed by the we version of the Serenity Prayer. Thank you, God. Grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today. Just for today. Please and thank you. What an interesting meditation. In case you missed it, the spiritual principle is discernment. And it's talking about how discernment basically comes by way of making prior mistakes, of trusting when you shouldn't have been trusting, of talking when you should have been quiet, of listening when you should have spoken up. And from those errors, somewhere in our brain, there is a groove that is developed that says, next time you come this route, do something different. Right? Because insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. In our step 2, we say we came to believe that we could be restored to sanity. So at some point in time, early in the game of actually working the steps and developing the spiritual principles, discernment naturally kicks into gear. And I say naturally because we don't really know when and how it kicks into gear. We just know that we've had enough pain in our lives that we start to wisen up. And game recognizes game. So now we're coming into the fellowship, and we don't need a lot of the things that we use: suspicion, cynicism, and self-reliance, these survival skills, right? We don't necessarily need those in the context of the way that we used them when we were using. Now it switches into more of a positive, healthy type spiritual principle, right? And it becomes discernment. And we are able to use discernment. For instance, hot topic around here, right? Hot topic: what to share, when to share, and who to share it with. And this meditation taps into that. It talks about, we learn to discern the difference between sharing at a group level, confiding in a friend, or bearing our soul in a fifth step to our sponsor, right? So there's things at the group level that would not be expected. You can share anything that's affecting your recovery, but generally speaking, some of the things that would be more like personal information that you might share with your best friend or with your sponsor in your fifth step, or in just anything that you might call your sponsor up and talk about, a lot of times it's not material for sharing in the meeting. I have found through my own error that if I talk about my background, right, of being abused sexually, if I talk about that, if I tap into that in a meeting, right, this is just my experience, right? If I tap into that in a meeting, I have seen the men won't share and the women will begin to overshare. I've watched this happen, thinking that, oh, I have a right to come into the meeting and share whatever I want. Yes, I do. But as I've matured in the fellowship, in the program, the application of spiritual principles, I've learned that there's a right time, a time and a place for everything. And that some of the stuff that I would be inclined to share about is more appropriate with one of my girls, one of my friends, or with my sponsor. Because in that atmosphere, there's very little time. I mean, I don't know a meeting where a person can just share 10 to 15 minutes and no one say, there's 20 other people here that need to share. Your time is up, right? So there's very little time. It's pressured time-wise because it's only an hour to an hour and a half, maybe 2 if you're lucky. It's very pressurized time-wise. So there's very little time to get into the details. Then the emotions and the solution, because that's what I was taught to bring. Bring the solution to your share. Bring it, bring the solution. And if you don't know it, say, I don't know. If someone has it, let me know, right? So I can, in a sense, take a whole meeting hostage sharing about just incest and its impact on my life. And then the shares seem like to me It causes the men not to want to share. And it causes the women to want to share, validate me, or affirm me, or just, talk about their own. And they may not have even been thinking about their past in that area before they came to the meeting. Maybe they were worried about getting fired from a job, but they're not going to share that. They're going to tap into this deeper discussion. And then the whole meeting becomes a women's meeting. And all of the men seem to be sitting there somewhat offended that now this is a women's meeting. But if it was pornography and one of them started to share about pornography, and I know women have issues with pornography as well. I'm not saying that. But if it was that, one gentleman will share about that, not being able to get anything done, or it's ruining his relationship with his wife. And then now it opens the door for other people to identify, and it becomes more of a men's meeting, right? So it goes both ways. But the point is, have I personally developed the discernment from those experiences now, so that when I go into a meeting, I have the ability to say, okay, this is a meeting. This is all of us coming together in an NA meeting. This is not a car conversation with my girl on the way to the meeting. And this definitely is not me tapping into my sponsor's ability to help me and redirect me when I'm having flashbacks. And my sponsor is not my therapist, right? My sponsor is not my counselor that I see about those issues. Do I have the ability to discern that and then act on it? Right? Because wisdom is the appropriate application of knowledge. So in discerning, I'm gaining knowledge. I have this information, but I still need to apply it. I'm talking about me because I can relate to this. Even though the way that it reads is very, it's very interesting the way that it's written, but I get the point and I understand it. And I want to share my experience, strength, and hope with you today. My name is Mighty Stream. I've enjoyed talking to you. I am going to have a beautiful day on purpose, and I hope that you will do the same. Talk to you soon.